So I think we can get started. Dominique, would you like to do roll call? Otherwise I can.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Tu, Commissioner Randazzo,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Del Val,
Here.
Commissioner Abraham Pani, Vice Chair Moll,
Here.
and Chair Reyes.
Here.
And you do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you. Next, in reviewing the agenda, there is an item that I would like to add that has arisen in the last 24 hours. So I would like to propose adding a business item. Business items, it would be we'd add item 7D. And that would be a review of the priority impact plastic pollution prevention policy. We will have a vote on a minor change and then just a update on moving that piece forward through council. So I'd like to motion that we add item 7D as described. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, do we have to do roll call, Dominique? I'm sorry, because we're on Zoom.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to do it or do you want
Can
me
you
to?
confirm the second?
Yes, that was Commissioner Del Valle.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Randazzo,
Aye.
Commissioner Del Valle,
Aye.
Commissioner Abraham Pani, Commissioner Murphy,
Aye.
Commissioner Moll,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye. And I think we had,
Your motion passes unanimously.
thank you. And just note for the record, I think we had Commissioner Tu join us as well.
Thank you.
Are there other items that people would like to add to the agenda?
Lacey,
Yes.
I would just like to introduce and then also allow for Amanda Rotella, the new Assistant City Manager specific to community development, to give us an intro of herself.
Would you like to do that now or at a different part on the agenda?
Now would be good.
Great. Hello, Amanda. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair Rake. My name is Amanda Rotella, and I am the new Assistant City Manager assigned to the Community Development Department, and incredibly excited to be joining the Seaside team and be overseeing the division, and have gotten a little bit of an update from Beth on the work that you're involved in. And so any way that I can kind of support the work of the commission, I'm excited to do so. So I come to you from the city of Santa Cruz. My background is in economic development, and yeah, I'm available for any questions and here to be a resource and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and welcome to the Seaside team. We're very happy to have you here. I know I will probably be reaching out to you within the next couple of weeks just to touch base on some climate action work and some climate planning that I hope to get started in the near future. But I'm sure there'll be lots of other things that we get to work together on. So welcome, and we're happy to have you.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, let's move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda?
Members of the public, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you're calling in from a phone. Chair, there seems to be no members of the public that wish to make comment at this time.
Thank you. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. Is there a motion regarding the minutes?
I only noted in the minutes that it lists our next regularly scheduled meeting as being in October, but I believe that we have agreed to meet monthly.
Yeah, I think that's just a
Sorry,
holdover because
Wrong thing, but anyway, yes, if we could clarify that for our ongoing.
yes, we are now meeting monthly. So that may have been just a holdover from the previous schedule. I'm not sure which part you're referring to, but yes. A motion on the minutes?
Sorry, Lacey, one other thing on the minutes, just in terms of complete record. I think that possibly a member was left out, not accounted for as having been present or absent in the minutes of the last meeting. That was Randazzo, not listed as present or absent in the roll call.
Okay. Are you asking a question on if he was absent or present, or are you making a motion to amend the minutes?
I guess I'm just making a motion to amend to clarify that all members of the commission were accounted for in the recording of the minutes for it to be an official record, just as far as anything that I noted as being incomplete or not fully accurate.
Okay. So the motion is to
I would
amend.
make a motion to amend the minutes to ensure that all members of the commission were accounted for as present or absent, and then to approve the minutes.
Is there a second on the motion?
I can second Laura's motion.
Thank you. And we'll do roll call on approval of the minutes with the amendment.
Okay. Commissioner Randazzo,
Aye.
Commissioner Deval,
Aye.
Commissioner Tu,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mole,
Aye.
and Chair Rayak.
Aye.
Your motion passes unanimously.
Great. We'll move on to the business items. The first item is a presentation from Catherine Crockett on sustainable seaside events. Is Catherine here to join us?
I've just promoted her to panelist, and she'll be able to unmute herself shortly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dominique. Welcome, Catherine.
Ms. Crockett, you can now unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having me and allowing me to announce these events. And we're hoping to just gauge interest by the Environmental Committee. So the first one we're planning is a California Cleanup Day. This is a statewide effort, and target date is Saturday, September 18th. And it would be a cleanup of Laguna Grande Park on the seaside side of it. There's a group from Seaside High School, Ocean Defenders Group, Ocean Defenders Club, who did a Roberts Lake cleanup in April, and subsequently connected with Sustainable Seaside to plan a cleanup at the Seaside Beach on Memorial Day. So over 20 volunteers showed up for that and collected 8 bags of trash and debris along the Seaside Beach. So we want to do something, again, partnering with the Seaside High School group and this community, Seaside community, if possible. And we're looking for ideas for how to make that happen. So we did speak with City Manager Malin and Councilman Pacheco back in May with this idea. And we were looking for some training or some advice from the police department on how to deal with drug paraphernalia, homeless encampments and property, things like that. They were on board and supportive at that point without knowing all the details. So the next event is a Seaside Pollinator Park walking and biking tour. We're looking at Sunday, October 3rd. And this would be a tour of Seaside parks, specifically those that Sustainable Seaside, FOSPA, and the City of Seaside have been partnering with to create pollinator gardens. And this will have an educational component that will help Seaside retain its Bee City status. And we've already just sort of discussed this a little bit with some members of FOSPA, and they seem to be on board, but this, we want some more input to see how this could happen. So then the third event is next year, but we want to start planning it. It's our April 24th, Sunday, Seaside Earth Day event. This would be our 11th annual Seaside Community Celebration. And again, when we met with the city manager and Pacheco, Councilman Pacheco in May, we got the green light for proceeding and holding it on the City Hall lawn. And they offered the city's support as we've had in a couple of past years. So again, we're looking for ideas to make this a bigger event. We had an electric vehicle test fair in 2019 that was successful. And we have entertainment, Palenque Arts. Hopefully we can get them again this year, but we just want to make it a community-wide event, and again, looking for your ideas.
Thank you, Catherine.
Sure.
Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners?
I'll jump in. Just thank you so much, Catherine, for coming to speak to the commission as a whole. Of course, everybody on the commission knows already that I've been participating in FOSPA and Sustainable Seaside led work days, so definitely have been part of this conversation. But I did invite Catherine today specifically to involve the rest of the commission, in particular in the planning and execution of these upcoming events, to the extent that other commissioners might be available and interested in helping to come up with programming, in particular for the park tour, where we will be highlighting and focusing on the pollinator plantings, which of course our commission has had a major role in. So I'm really eager to hear from the rest of you as well, and any additional questions and any particular areas of interest that other members would like to contribute.
Yes, Kristen.
Yeah, I'm curious. When we talk about programming, I'm really excited about the pollinator tour. I know a lot of our locals don't even realize how many parks we have in Seaside, let alone the native plantings and pollinator plantings we put in them. So when you talk about programming, what is our expected target audience? For example, are we going to try and target families who may not realize how many diverse parks are available in Seaside for them to be enjoying with their families? Are we going to be targeting people who live near the parks and might want to come and volunteer to be stewards of these spaces or be stewards of a park near them? I'm excited. I want to know what I should focus on.
Okay. Is that directed to me?
Probably.
Okay. Well, one aspect of it is the Bee City designation the City of Seaside holds. And so we're thinking there might be tabling at each of the parks or some kind of activity. Could be an interactive family, type of activity. As far as the target audience, well, we're promoting the bicycling and walking aspect of it. So we want to promote it to students, CSUMB, high school, we do have a partnership with the International School of Monterey. They've been helping with the pollinator parks as part of their service projects. So we're hoping they'll participate on some level, bring their parents and their families. So yeah, there's a bee pollinator. We're also Tree City. But just, you know, to really highlight these beautiful parks that we have that are being improved. And, you know, we have these Saturday cleanups that FOSPA has been organizing. And we just think it's worth showing off. And yeah, we really need to think about how we want to promote it. That's a concern.
Yeah. If I can continue, the two things that come to mind immediately, if you were trying to do something engaging kids, maybe some activities which highlight the role bees and pollinators are playing in a way that also maybe teaches them some stewardship behaviors around the plants. So less charging through things and getting stung and breaking the plants, and more, you know, playing games that, you know, talk about like what are pollinators doing. And I can help you with that. And for some of the adults and the biking and the students, we could do a pretty easy Google Earth based tour. So if someone was using their smartphone going from spot to spot, you could have kind of like some checklist stuff, like scavenger hunt style, to make sure that they're seeing all the plants that we have in those, maybe some notable trees or notable pollinator plants, or even notable playground features. They remember which is the park that has swings, because turns out only one of our pollinator parks has a swing in it. So yeah, those would be some things that could possibly hit different demographics. I know as a adult cyclist, my smartphone is very invaluable in finding my way from point A to point B. So I can help with those.
Great ideas. Thanks.
Chelsea.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for presenting these upcoming events and for inviting the Environmental Commission to brainstorm with you. I just want to know one potential date conflict of the October 3rd event with, I believe, Blues in a Park. So in speaking with the Parks and Rec director, Dan Mewis, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and I apologize if that wasn't right. On the next item on potential Seaside Community Fair, he noted that Blues in the Park for this upcoming year, with all of the uncertainties we're facing, of course, is tentatively scheduled for September 12th, 1926, as well as October 3rd. So just want to provide that information. Hopefully that's accurate for your consideration.
Oh, thank you, Chelsea. That is a concern. That's a conflict that we really want to avoid.
Can you say the dates again? Because I heard the events that Catherine mentioned were October 5th and September 18th, but I thought you said the 3rd and the 12th.
It is the 3rd I mentioned, Sunday, October 3rd.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And for the Blues in the Park events, I believe there are the 3 Sundays starting September 12th, 19th, and 26th of this year, and then the first Sunday, October 3rd as well.
Okay. Well, we definitely want to work around those dates.
Any other comments or questions from commission members? Yeah, Laura.
So Catherine, I just wanted to ask, are you planning to form a committee or a group to actually go through a planning process and develop ideas around the tours? And if so, how best can commission members participate in that process with you?
Yes, we do want to form a committee, an organizing group, and we welcome anyone from the environmental committee to come, bring your ideas, and or just sit in, you know, to stay up to date with what's being planned. So we don't have any dates right now. In fact, this announcing these and sort of getting your support and all would sort of launch our effort. And then we start putting together a schedule of meetings and timeline for what activities need to be done to plan and organize this.
So if you could communicate with myself and or with Beth when
All
the
right.
meeting dates would be set so that we can make sure that everyone receives the information so that members who want to participate and are available, particularly Kristen, you have a lot of great ideas,
Uh-huh.
be able to
All
do
right.
so. Thank you, Catherine.
All right, will do. Thank you.
Catherine, I had one question, and maybe you don't know the answer to this yet, but for the California Coastal Cleanup Day, are you planning on partnering with any other organizations like Surfrider, Save the Waves, sort of local groups that often also do coastal cleanups? to
We
some
may,
degree?
we may,
Okay, That'll probably
definitely.
come up in the
CSU
planning.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, okay,
Well, definitely. If there's usually a map of events and signups and to get, the widest volunteer outreach that we can get.
yeah.
So we'll
I
tap
often
into
think
that.
the beaches get so covered with people cleaning up. I often think it's good to also look inland and do, non-point source litter pollution cleanup that can make its way into the ocean very easily. But just a thought.
Mhm.
Are there any other thoughts or commissioners or thoughts or questions from commissioners? Oh, I'm sorry, Mariana.
Hey, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time because I do have my little one in the background, so he may scream at any point during me asking these questions. So just kind of adding to what Lacey was asking, I think it would also be good, in addition to collaborating with other coastal cleanup organizations, maybe also collaborating with the Homeless Committee or any other organizations that deal with houseless. I think that would be really important, especially given the situation within the park. And as far as the cleanup as well, there he is. Data, if there's any data being collected, I think that would be really important and really interesting to see, especially since there has been other cleanups happening. I'm wondering if that has been part of the process or part of the events. In addition to having organizing groups for the tour, are you also considering that for the other events? Sorry, that's a lot, but I didn't want him to scream.
Mariana, can you repeat the last? I didn't hear what the last few words were.
Yeah,
what
in addition to having the organizing groups, like for the tours, you mentioned having an organizing group to coordinate the event. Are you also
Yes.
considering that for the others?
Yes, definitely for the Earth Day event in April, and it's actually time to start planning for next April. And I hope to recruit Jackie Ballestera. She's a student coordinator who helped to launch this Ocean Defenders group at Seaside High School. And we did categorize, tally and all the trash that was collected on Seaside Beach. And it's very telling to see what we pick up. It was 8 bags and it was all small, almost all of it was very small pieces. But we plan to do that. So thanks for your concerns and comments.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for the work you do to support our community. I would encourage you, if you have time, to stick around for the next item on the agenda, because it'll also be talking about events, and you might find it interesting.
All right, I will.
Okay, great. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 7B, and I'll turn it over to Timothy and Chelsea to present their concept for.
Lacey, before we move on,
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Beth. Are there any public comments on item 7A?
We do have a member of the public that has their hand raised. If any other members of the public would like to make public comment, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you're calling in from a phone. And Diane Nielsen, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I just wanted to add that the comment that was made that could we, by Lacey, that we include neighborhoods in the cleanup. Yes, I've noticed that too on, that one big cleanup day. You can always find something, but it gets a little harder when there's a whole bunch of people that have already come through there on the beach. And so much, all of that almost, I'd say a very large percentage of it comes from the neighborhoods, and the Neighborhood Improvement Commission is going to have, and this could be a totally separate thing, but I know they're going to have schedule a cleanup of big dumpsters in certain neighborhoods. And I don't know if it would be good to coordinate at the same time to do this big cleanup, not just the beach, but it would be a great opportunity for volunteers to help in the neighborhoods as well during that time. But I definitely see the need for further inland attention on that September 18th beach cleanup day. But thank you. I appreciate your great ideas. That's it.
Thank you, Diane. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on item 7A?
All right, we do have another member of the public wishing to speak. Kathy Rivera, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Yeah, hi. I am a member of Sustainable Seaside's steering committee. And I've also been out in the parks with our pollinator garden efforts at not just the Park Lincoln Cunningham that we've been stewarding, but with all of the FOSPA parks that have made these plantings. And I am really excited about the tour idea and think that it can be a great educational event as well as an awareness event for the general public. I have volunteered to help convene a committee to plan this. So I'll take the initiative to reach out to the commission members, FOSMA members, as well as our Sustainable Seaside group to arrive at our initial date when we can all meet to have our initial planning. And it sounds like the very first thing we need to do is to find a new date if the Blues in the Park conflict is something that we feel we can't overcome. So that might be as easy as moving it to Saturday instead of Sunday. So I hope I will get a response from everyone, probably send out a doodle poll to find a date when most all interested parties can meet, and we'll kick off the planning for this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. Are there any other members?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There are no other members of the public that have indicated they wish to speak.
Thank you, Dominique. And thanks, Beth, for the reminder. Now I think we are ready to move on to 7B. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Timothy and Chelsea. So go ahead.
Thank you. I do have a presentation that I would like to share. Would I just be able to share screen right away?
Yes.
Okay.
You can proceed.
Thanks, Dominique. Okay. Can everybody see the Google Slides that's on my screen? Okay, great. And so does everybody see the title slide, Seaside Community Fair?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, then I will use my limited technology skills to try to expand this to present mode.
It's over on the right. Oh, there you go. You got it.
Does it look all right to everybody? Okay, great. Well, thank you for giving me and Timothy this opportunity to formally present to you a concept proposal to create a seaside community fair. The purpose of this presentation is really to share more deeply, building on conversations we've had before in Environmental Commission on why Timothy and I think a community fair would really be a good way for the Commission to start green economic recovery and support Seaside through recovering economically as well as building on its sustainability initiatives through the COVID pandemic. So in addition to kind of speaking through the origins of how we came up with the Seaside Community Fair idea, we also want to share with you goals and vision for the community fair and how we like to structure the community fair so that it's inclusive, it's equitable, and really showcases the diverse community that we're very fortunate to live in and to serve. And finally, at the end of the presentation, we like to ask for the Environmental Commission's approval for the Green Economic Recovery Subcommittee to continue working on developing and then implementing the Seaside Community Fair. So as you can see, we have a few slides to go through, and so Timothy and I will just switch off presenting different slides. So in terms of origins, in spring 2020, the world changed. And so Environmental Commission, through leadership of Lacey, we did an internal survey on asking members to share their top priorities moving forward in light of the COVID pandemic, how we want to proceed with participating in the Environmental Commission, and how the Commission can really continue to serve and better serve the community during this very difficult time. So the concept of a green economic recovery was nominated during the survey period. And then I was very happy that the Commission voted green economic recovery as a priority work topic. When we convened the next time and green economic recovery among other topics rose to the top, I really had no idea what green economic recovery meant, but I just knew kind of in instinctual way that I wanted to really help shepherd that idea. And I think many of you know I work with environmental justice communities where we're not only looking at the environmental and health impacts of different actions. We're really also looking at how do we support communities, especially low-income communities of color, in working at jobs that have dignity, that also support the environment, or at least are not detrimental. And so really in my perspective and experience working with environmental justice communities, economic improvements and environmental protection go hand in hand. So green economic recovery, especially during the pandemic, really spoke to me. Of course, looking around the community, especially in the beginning of 2020, and I'm sure this, I was not alone in thinking, experiencing, observing this, as saw lot of our independent local farmers, especially fresh produce vendors, really had very limited to no platform to be able to provide their fresh produce to the community. And I remember very vividly that during the beginning of lockdown, when everybody was at home, a person came to knock on my apartment complex door and was selling strawberries, and he'd come all the way from Salinas. I really felt for that person and other farmers who really were struggling, especially during 2020. Just to be able to deliver the fresh produce and the fruits that they had worked so hard to cultivate, and to be able to support the community in continuing to eat fresh. And I think that in the beginning of the subcommittee, as I joined and Lori joined, we really thought about how can we then support independent farmers as well as our small businesses in Seaside that were struggling to have any visibility in order to have any revenue during such a challenging economic time, as well as how can we support them as well as the community in promoting small farmers and small businesses in an environmentally sound way. So I will now pass the slides to Timothy to talk about lessons learned. Go ahead, Timothy.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And just for everyone's awareness, I'm turning off my camera because my internet has been lacking all day, and it was cutting out and stuff. So I'm just going to turn my video off to save some bandwidth so that you guys can hear me and I can deliver this information. So in constructing this event and this concept proposal, one of the chief concerns that we have is the turnout and how to get people to actually show up to this event. So as we've mentioned in past Environmental Commission meetings, is that we had that Seaside Farmers Market back over in 2018, 2019. And the turnout for that was not what we would have expected. So Beth had shared some key documents and invoices with Chelsea and I from that Seaside Farmers Market that ran from about June 2018 to September 2019. And through reviewing all of those invoices and documents, we have identified some of the key things that has been the focus of incorporating into this potential event. So the first thing that we saw through these recommendations is to brand the event as a community street fair, not just a farmer's market. And that kind of goes along with one of the other points on here is to increase the number and variety of vendors. So a lot of people had felt that there was more businesses that could have participated in this event, such as local restaurants, also local artists and musicians, and other freelance type of work, and not just fresh produce. So that is something that we were looking into this, and that is ultimately why we're calling it the community fair. Another thing was advertising. There was a lot of recommendations to actually use social media, the Nextdoor app, which has a huge following in our city, having more flyers, and actually having vendors advertise that they will be appearing at this event. That was something that wasn't done before and could really increase the turnout of this event. Is just to get those vendors to talk to their customer base about having this event. Next thing is making it affordable for vendors to participate. And lastly is having some entertainment sources such as musicians, artists, crafts and craft tables, or other kids' activities. And this is something that we've been looking into via potentially partnering with the Blues in the Park. So having that entertainment for guests who are coming. And also if we do end up having it at Laguna Grande, which we'll talk about a little bit later, it would also have the park amenities that are there to have activities for children and families, just to make it more family friendly and more entertainment. And you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So yeah, with all of this in mind, we have been seeing a need for an event to showcase the community within Seaside and what Seaside has to offer, and to also unite them in a common space. And then secondly is to help farmers and small businesses get back on their feet post-COVID. So these are our kind of three main goals for having this community fair. First of which, educating businesses and residents on environmental practices and the city's sustainability initiatives. Secondly, would be to showcase and support local agriculture, small businesses, and art, especially the ones who have been struggling through the pandemic. And then also just promoting community interaction and engagement, which is something we are primarily focusing on with having this event, is just bringing the people of Seaside together. And then next, we just have our visions for this event. If it is successful, is to have it be a self-sustaining reoccurring event that is hosted by the city in collaboration with other community members and groups. We would also want it to increase the awareness and participation by local businesses to the public in sustainable practices. So just having that transparent communication between our commission and the public, and also what it means to have a sustainable business, and ways to bring awareness to that and give them tools necessary for sustainable practices. The third thing is just to increase visibility and revenue for local farmers and small businesses. Like Chelsea was saying, some small businesses and local farmers don't have the storefront or maybe the resources to conduct their businesses. So having this community fair event is something that could really help them and boost their revenue and their customer base. And lastly, just to boost civic pride and engagement among Seaside residents, businesses, and our city officials. And then, yeah, I'll pass it back to Chelsea. She'll be talking about kind of the target audience and businesses that we have been looking into.
Right. Thank you, Timothy. So we kind of broke down our target audiences and businesses in 4 categories. First and foremost, of course, we like to invite produce vendors in Monterey and Santa Cruz areas to participate, be able to sell their fresh fruits, vegetables, and flowers in the community fair. I actually took this photo to the right at the Tuesday evening Monterey market. And this was actually very recently when the market reopened, and people were very respectful and distance, and mostly wore masks, and it was just really wonderful to be able to basically use my dollars to vote for fresh produce and local produce. I was extremely happy to get some beets and some zucchini and some like mushrooms for a few dollars, and I had that in my fridge fresh for the rest of the week. Of course, as Timothy mentioned, one of the key lessons learned from the previous farmers market was that residents really wanted to see a little bit more variety. And so we like to invite arts and crafts stores or artists, bakeries, other small businesses, as well as restaurants that are based or located in Seaside. I love going up, for example, to Lupita's Bakery. I love walking by all the Oaxacan arts and crafts shops. And, I think inviting folks from small businesses that have long-standing history and I think a fan base in Seaside to showcase their work in the community market is really another, like I was saying, in providing like that other platform, and hopefully support these small businesses and arts and crafts sellers in increasing their visibility as well as revenue. We also like to invite home occupation license operators. I believe actually Beth came up with this idea. And I know a lot of people started their own businesses, especially during COVID. And like Timothy said, not everybody has a storefront. So the community fair could provide that space as a storefront. And of course, the fair would not be complete without the residents of Seaside and Monterey area. I think we talked a little bit about each of these different additional stakeholders in previous less formal conversations about the Seaside Community Fair and Environmental Commissions. I just want to include all of those different stakeholders and volunteers that we talked about, and Timothy and I believe would really be critical to supporting and helping run and making sure that the community fair is sustainable and successful. We reached out to folks in the Neighborhood Improvement Committee. I've spoken with Dan, the director of Parks and Rec, and there might be other commissions that have that might be interested in working in to put together the community fair. I've also spoken with other city staff on this event, and city staff, of course, would be indispensable in actually setting up and then closing the event. So we've in a couple of slides, you'll see that we've kind of provided some estimates of time in terms of hours and costs that it would take to have a couple of city staff help with the logistics of the event. Students are a very important part and stakeholder to the community fair. So we love to invite CSU Monterey-based students as well as Seaside High School students. And of course, we love to have a variety of community organizations, different local and regional agencies, and nonprofit organizations be at the community fair to really promote the educational and environmental aspect of the fair. So I can move on to the next slide, and Timothy will dive a little bit deeper into the sustainability and education aspect of the community fair.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. So that last point that Chelsea was mentioning with having other community organizations or agencies, nonprofits working together to promote sustainability would be kind of one of the core things that we're looking at for this event. So in ways that firstly, having the Environmental Commission table and distribute information. So there's many things that we could do as the Environmental Commission for tabling. Firstly, if PIP 4 is approved, that could be a really great opportunity for us to distribute information about it and materials that would help local businesses and also consumers to really promote and make that transition a lot easier and more efficient. So that would be one of the really big ways we could table for sustainability initiatives within Seaside. We could also provide information for habitat work days and other sustainability initiatives that we would like to spread to the public and make more, increase the awareness for. And then we're also looking to having other local and regional sustainability initiatives showcased at this event by having other entities table, such as a green waste recovery, and offering incentive programs or kind of workshops for residents to get involved with solar energy and composting. And then lastly, potential partners who are working within sustainability or the environmental realm, such as Sustainable Seaside, Ventana Wildlife Society, and Return of the Natives. They have all expressed interest in tabling at this event and promoting sustainability and also increasing awareness for environmental issues and initiatives that they are working on, but just providing that avenue for residents to get involved with the environment and sustainability. So there's a lot of different ways we're looking at incorporating sustainability, but these would be kind of the definite ways that we would, yeah.
Thank you,
And then,
David. But if I may add an addendum, I've spoken with or through email a couple of folks from Sustainable Seaside, and I'm really glad that Catherine and Kathy are here, and you're welcome to share any comments or questions you like. It's my understanding that the entirety of Sustainable Seaside hasn't had the time to discuss, exactly how they think about or haven't had a lot of exposure to the community fair idea. But we hope that Sustainable Seaside would consider being a partner in the community fair if it does come to fruition. We promise we only have 2 more slides. I just want to run through a little bit on logistics. Since we talked a little bit about it, won't spend too much time. So I believe it was Laura or someone else who had the idea of starting the community fair as a pilot, and maybe in some way in conjunction with or next to Blues in the Park. And so had the opportunity to speak with Dan from Parks and Rec about this idea, and he was very open to it. So right now, where you see possible location number 1 for the community fair is what I understand is where food vendors and people who table at the Blues in the Park are located. So Dan and I were thinking that if there is room that other vendors, like fresh produce vendors that are have traditionally been missing from Blues in the Park, and other tablers, for example, on sustainability or green initiatives, could also be located on this large patch of grass that you see to your right of this lovely area photo that Timothy put together. There's also kind of moving up, or I suppose moving northwest, along the park, that play structure, and then additional smaller patch of green grass that Dan and I have been talking about as additional space for featuring community fair vendors. And so, as I mentioned, Dan gave me some dates that they now have scheduled for Blues in the Park in September and the beginning of October, which is really the kind of the summertime for us here in the Monterey area. So hopefully with approval of the commission to move forward with the work, there's a lot more to be done, of course, if we are able to move forward, but we hope that we could start the pilot this September or October, tagging along with one of the Blues in the Park Sundays. And if we are successful, we hope that this could be kind of a launching year for the community fair, and hopefully we'll be able to hold a couple more within this fiscal year of 2021 and 2022. It does take a lot of resources and people and effort to put together each fair, So we want to be realistic about it, of course. And then in terms of location, we're pretty much looking at where we think that the most visible, most likely to succeed location would be. The former Seaside Farmers Market was, as people probably remember, on the lower half or west part of Broadway. And I think that that is still, a good possible location. If and hopefully when the community fair becomes a regular reoccurring event, I think that, want to work with the community to make sure that any location that we do decide on as a reoccurring location works best for the community. I think just talking among Timothy, myself, Beth, and a small group of people, we do think that this area right in front of City Hall on Laguna Grande Park is probably a better location because there's a lot of traffic coming in and out of Monterey and Seaside on kind of this kind of border area. And then there's, of course, existing traffic from people who are just walking around Laguna Grande Park. So in terms of budget, I'm really glad to see a city manager here, or I think he was here, because we did see $75,000 appropriated in the most current, recently passed budget for different quote-unquote Broadway events for the upcoming fiscal year under different departments. And so my understanding of Broadway events is, it's not necessarily location restricted, but it's really as a kind of a catch-all or placeholder title for different community events that different departments and programs and, working in conjunction with various city commissions and community members want to create and bring people together for in this coming fiscal year or this current fiscal year. And I know that the operational costs and revenues slide is pretty complicated. So I think I'll just sum it up to say that we've thought about, different potential base costs on the left for each time to run the event. And, if we're looking at really, I think, a pretty conservative estimate, porta potties, it turns out, cost a lot of money. And so if we do hold the event permanently in Laguna Grande, we can take advantage of public facilities at the park, like Timothy was referring to. Probably don't need 4 portable toilets, which would cost, cut costs down a lot. Beth incorporated some rough estimates for city personnel to put together, as well as clean up after the event. And, we, of course, want to make sure that the community fairs products and, what people use and eat are compostable and recyclable. And so, that would be a detail that we would work with Green Waste in the future on to actually get a more accurate estimate of what is needed and how much things are going to cost. We like to charge nominal vendor fees depending on size and type of vendor, and also get sponsorships for different groups that would like to table. We're thinking too that based on lessons learned from earlier, if groups are unincorporated or are small nonprofits, we obviously wouldn't require them to pay money to table. We hope that they would be able to help promote the event and I think really set up the event for success. So I think the bottom line on operational costs and revenues is, depending on how we work out logistics as the event moves forward, we hope that the costs and the revenues will balance each other out. So we don't even need to take, it's not a loss for the city to run the event, or it's only going to cost the city a couple $100, maybe a couple of $1,000 to run an event. Okay, so with that, I will hand the last slide over to Timothy to close.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea. So yeah, that was just the conclusion of our concept proposal. So now we would take any questions. And just to remind, for the formal request is to request for the Environmental Commission's approval to add the Seaside Community Fair to the Green Economic Recovery Subcommittee's work plan for the year 2021-2022.
Thank you. I'm going to stop share.
Thanks. Thank you, Chelsea and Timothy, both for the presentation and perhaps more importantly for the amount of time, work, and energy that you've put into putting this proposal together. It's obvious that you've put a lot of thought into it and reached out to a lot of different stakeholders. So thank you for that work. I'll open it up to the commissioners now for comments and questions. And I see Kristen, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had one, like the first third of the presentation I already forgot, but I hung on to the other two when I wrote them down. One question I have, if you are, I really like the collaboration with Blues in the Park. I know that having volunteered at the Monterey Jazz Festival, there's definitely a lot of people who like to be near the music, but like get restless. And so the fact that they already have like food vendors and such, they're expanding that seems like a great natural fit, because people will still be enjoying the music and then they'll have more to do in that space, especially if they, say bring a kid and someone is restless. So that part seems good, although that part also seems like it would be the hardest for, say, food vendors that are not food vendors, produce vendors. Because if I am, for example, planning on being somewhere for a while, I probably didn't bring enough bags for my groceries, and I would worry about delicate things like strawberries and lettuce being destroyed. Having just been to a farmer's market on my way to somewhere else, I realized I only got like potatoes, carrots, and beets because I figured they would survive whatever I did next. But everything else, like the existing facilities and something for people to do, sounds good. So it might be worth the pilot just to see how that happens, but it depends a bit on our goals. Another thing that I wrote down was to talk to my museum. I know they're trying to open up again after everyone's thing was closed in COVID, and they used to have like an outreach truck, which had some like kid activity things there. So that could be something handy, especially in terms of the restless families at a Blues in the Park. And then another note I have here was about, okay, I don't know what that means. I need to figure out what my handwriting was. Yeah, I don't know what I wrote down. I'm sorry. I'll lower my hand and I'll come back to that last one. But yes, very excited for all these things. Oh, okay. No, I remember what that means now. The last note I had was basically about offering different tables at different prices so that you could have some free tables for folks to apply for, whether it is economic need or nonprofit status or something. But then if you basically have like the prime tables at the prime spots cost more, then a sponsor could effectively get that by buying an expensive table. And that would be a different way of looking at sponsorships. Like, I want the spot with the foot traffic, therefore I will pay for that spot because I'm going to get a lot of business. And then that's a model which worked really well for a different event that I was a part of. And then you have also more people, if you're trying to support the economic recovery in Seaside, more people who might be like, I would like to participate, I would like to be a part of this, but I don't know if I want to spend money, and I also have to pay staff to be there. So that was another thought. So thank you. If you have any questions, we can back and forth, but there's my info dump that I wrote down.
Thanks, Kristen. Mariana.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chelsea and Timothy, for putting so much incredible work into this. And the presentation was really amazing. One thing that I just had a question about that I may have missed, given that we're trying to do it the same day as Blues in the Park, from my understanding, have we spoken with coordinators with that are also doing Blues in the Park to make sure that they are aware and kind of in collaboration with them?
Yeah, Dan Mewis is the Parks and Rec director, and also I think the key manager person running Blues in the Park. And so spoken with him, and he's very receptive to piloting the community fair this fall at Blues in the Park.
Thanks. Laura.
Hi, I will also echo the comments. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and your dedication and for providing this follow-up presentation. I am really happy to hear that you're thinking about trying to do this as a pilot in conjunction with another event that is proven to be successful and, you know, coordinated with folks that have a lot of experience. And I think that that will be very important to kind of, you know, troubleshooting, evaluating the possibilities here. I'm continue to be concerned about trying to make it an independent event. In particular, the focus on trying to support farmers from the area. This is a particular area of interest and concern to me because that is what I do for work. I work with the farmers in the area. And having observed the Seaside's lack of success with the farmers market, as we've already discussed, not having heard a whole lot yet about any follow-up with Everyone's Harvest, who otherwise runs many successful farmers markets in the region, but did not in Seaside. I'm just concerned about that being such a significant area of focus, and I would like to ask you to consider redirecting your energy toward operational farm vendors, which are already present in Seaside with community supported agriculture options, for example. I don't think that a quarterly event or a one-off event, it will be sustainable for a farm looking for outlets regularly for their produce. And so maybe focusing on building connections for those farmers which are scaling up a direct marketing operation already and really kind of, you know, aiming at creating connections between local grocers, restaurants, local restaurants, and consumers that would be a regular sales outlet would be an area to focus rather than just offering a table space for a one-off or even quarterly event. So focusing around exposure of local businesses and small businesses to promote them to connect with one another, and also the community here in Seaside, but also just thinking in terms of logistics, as was already mentioned, people aren't going out for an all day in the park and thinking about bringing home fresh produce. It's just kind of considering those types of logistics would be really important. And I also think that with the enthusiasm, the energy that you both have already shown for this concept, there's so much potential and so much opportunity to continue leveraging the events that are already otherwise being planned by community partners. So I'm really glad, Chelsea, to hear that you've spoken with folks from Sustainable Seaside. And as they've just presented, they have multiple events that they are coordinating with other partners to try to put forward in the community, and that to take some of the concepts and elements of the community fair that you've been developing and find ways to insert them, incorporate them, promote them, and integrate those with events that are already being planned. For example, the park tour, the cleanup days, but also as you are intending to pilot in conjunction with the Blues in the Park event, and any other of the events that would be promoted or offered on Broadway throughout the year, rather than necessarily trying to focus on creating an independent separate event. I really would love to see as much leveraging as possible with other things that are otherwise being planned, particularly with those entities in the community that have experience and have proven that they can bring community members out, because I think that that might be the biggest kind of focal point or crux for the event to ultimately be successful. I think that covers all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Chelsea or Timothy, do you have any clarifying comments, questions, or remarks that you'd like to make to any of the comments you've heard so far?
I could start, and feel free to add anything to Timothy. Thank you for all the good points and suggestions, Kristen. We'll build them into beta version of this concept, or I don't know which version we're already at, because we talked about this a couple of times. And Laura, thank you so much for supporting the idea of combining the pilot with the Blues in the Park. Yeah, I think I think that there's a couple of concerns I want to address on in terms of making sure that we work with farmers in Seaside, that that you have a lot more expertise on how to best do that than I do. I love to learn more about different experiences you've had, and I have talked to Hester. I believe she's the president of Everyone's Harvest, and in terms of I think that in terms of lessons learned, I think looking internally, Hester did mention that she also felt like the event could have been a lot more successful if Everyone's Harvest and or the city or other people didn't put more effort into promoting it. I believe that wasn't a lot of promotion in the beginning of the event, and I think sometime halfway through, while I was running in 2018 and 2019, she suggested more social media, more even door-to-door canvassing and flyering. And so I think there's a lot of any event like what I think various people have said that really depends on promotion and people who can bring the community out through different ways. And so that's definitely something that Timothy and I have thought that would be one of the key next steps to continuing to develop the community fair idea, in whatever version or form it becomes. I when we first started thinking about the community fair, Timothy and I thought it would be really great to have the fair actually run every 2 weeks, so that it does provide that regularity for farmers, so that they have that expectation of consistency in terms of what's on their schedule in terms of income. I believe that there were the first couple of times we talked about that reoccurrence. I think what I heard, at least at the time, from different commissioner members was actually to reduce the number of times for the event. So I'm not sure what the right regularity is anymore, but and I think it really depends on a lot of different things, right? Nobody can tell like what is the best balance of time and date and location. Hester did also suggest that we actually survey, a subset of community members. Maybe those are questions for community members on, how often we should really have this event that would promote, compel them to come out on a regular basis. And so that could be something that we implement during pilot phase at Blues in the Park when there's a lot of people. So any of those, I think, like kind of nuts and bolts questions, love to workshop with you all more, and also survey the community. And I think I love the idea of, regardless of regularity or time, to piggyback or leverage with other existing events or like timely celebrations, like Earth Day, for example, could be a potential good timely celebration to put on another community fair.
Thanks, Chelsea. I'm going to share just a couple of comments or thoughts that I have as well. I appreciate the previous comments, especially Laura. I think you have a good sense of farmers and needs and options. I'm still struggling a little bit with this. I'm going to be honest. I think I'm confused a little bit by community fair and and its connection to economic recovery. I think I see a lot of, potential benefits just for community engagement. But when I hear produce markets or produce and farmers, I don't actually think of Seaside, and maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there are a lot of farm businesses in Seaside. But I think about produce like Camacho Produce or La Preciosa, where I just go to the market. And most of that produce, frankly, comes from like Mexico or Guatemala. I don't know how much, at least that's what the sticker on it says when I purchase it. And so while I want to support local farmers, I'm not seeing the direct connection to supporting Seaside economy. And I think, if we're thinking about surveys, I think speaking to small businesses, whether that's restaurants or, whatever else ice cream shops, what would help them? I feel like that's kind of a missing piece of information. Like if we had a community fair, would they see themselves having a role in that? And would that provide them long-term economic benefit? I think if we talk about our businesses in Seaside coming to a community fair, do they all have the capacity to serve their food in a community fair situation? Do they have the tent or the burners or whatever it is that they might need to serve that food? And would that just be an extra cost? And how do we get long-term economic benefit for our businesses in an environmentally sort of conscious way? So I think about things like tours. We were talking about like a park tour, like a restaurant tour or a passport or something where people are going to a community park where they feel safe and comfortable. And I'll just say, I think there's a barrier that people have sometimes to go to different types of restaurants. So there might be a level of uncomfortableness for some people, maybe not the people on this commission, maybe others, to go to a business where the owners where English isn't their first language. And I think if we can help bridge that barrier, that provides a lot more long-term impact to community cohesiveness and long-term economic benefit to that business. Because instead of, sort of middle-class people coming to a community fair, it's asking people to sort of explore their community in a way that they don't in their day-to-day life, So I think that's an aspect of this that I'd like to see explored a little bit more. And I'm happy, I don't want to just say this and say, go do this. I'm happy to help you with this as well. But I also really like the idea of partnering with existing events. I think the Blues in the Park idea is a great idea. I think what we need to do if we want to instill sustainability as sort of a practice and a norm throughout our community, we have to find these things that are successful and that have been sort of happening in a certain way for the last 10 years and infuse sustainability into them. So if there's food trucks that are coming to Blues in the Park, let's make sure that they're following what probably will be a new food truck ordinance and using the compostable ware and not using single-use water bottles, or that we have hydration station refilling centers at the event, and there's recycling and compost being collected at the event. So how do we infuse that so that that becomes the norm, and that we don't have to have these standalone sustainability events, and those are the only events where sustainability actually happens? Because then you just get the same people kind of going to those events, right? So those are some of my thoughts, and like, that's not to say I don't like the direction or I don't want this effort to continue. I'm really conscious of making that economic value connection for seaside businesses. I think that was all of my. So the Blues in the Park is a great collaboration, and I think the Earth Day is a great opportunity for us to focus on some of the sustainability efforts. Those the booths and the partners that you shared in one of the slides, those would be great folks to have at the Earth Day event and possibly at Blues in the Park. But I also think we can think outside the box with Earth Day and do a tour of sustainable restaurants or green certified businesses in Seaside. So I'll pause there because I'm seeing other hands pop up. I don't need to dominate this conversation. Beth, I think I saw your hand first, and then Kristen.
That's all right. Kristen can go first.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Kristen.
All right. Yeah, it was sparked by something you said to give Timothy and Chelsea a kind of a jumping off from something Lacey was suggesting. There've been some really, really nice food tours in Monterey. They've done like historic food tours and like foodie food tours, like things for tourists and things for locals. And with what Lacey was describing in terms of getting people more comfortable going to local businesses, if you want to think about something in that direction, I'd be more than happy to download with my experience going on those food tours and some other things I've done similar to that. And that was kind of dovetailing in my head with what Timothy and Chelsea, you were trying to balance, like, what's the appropriate timing of this? Because if it's a farmer's market, then you want the food to be available regularly because you want it to be a place people shop. But if it's something that we want to highlight or jumpstart local businesses or give people a taste or a familiarity of local businesses in a way that they might not have seen them otherwise, like maybe they don't go to that street in the city, or they don't go inside that building because that building looks old, but now they're outside the building. Now they're a chance to meet these people in another way. That you only need to do occasionally, and the less frequently you do it, the more a business can put effort into it, as opposed to this being a drag every week. So if you look strategically at a calendar for a few things like Blues in the Park or Earth Day or something, and you don't go for the I need it to be a habit building farmers market, but instead I need this to be something that a local business can put their heart into because they only have to do it once or twice a year. I think about some of the collaborations that happened for the Old Cooking for Solutions, where lots of local restaurants were showing off sustainable seafood and types of fish people would never want to eat. And they did that once a year, so people could put a lot more into it. But I really like what Lacey was saying about kind of the food tours. Like, we can bring people out, but getting people comfortable by going in a group or going as part of an event to a place you might not have gone, then people can keep going back there year after the year. They don't have to wait for them to show up at the annual event. And so I feel like that is not mutually exclusive with what you're talking about here. Like maybe we can meet these people for the first time when they come out to Blues in the Park, and then we can talk about going to tour their place. And you have to be doing sustainable business practices if we're going to tour your place. So now your Earth Day food tour is not only going to help foodies and help them be more comfortable, but reward the businesses who have changed their business practices. Or at least tried it and gone, oh, that wasn't that bad. So I feel like a lot of the things that Lacey is saying can build on some of the things that you were having for goals, and that the work you've put into this isn't to start from scratch, but maybe these are, maybe this is another way of looking at what is a community festival. Maybe this one is in the park by the music and this one is walking. So I just was excited how well those actually fit together.
Thanks, Kristen. Mariana?
Yeah, so thank you, Lacey, for those comments. And I think I share some of the same concerns with you, but for me, this idea, yes, economic recovery, and when I was hearing the presentation, I was thinking more of not just economic recovery, but bringing the community together. And not just bringing businesses that serve food, but also bringing in artists, bringing in, other local businesses and amplifying their work that may not even have a shop or have a building or all of that. And I think as far as I really liked, for example, when Timothy was talking about making sure that there's more amplification and more promotion of the event in a way that maybe hasn't been done before, and in a way that maybe reach some of the community that we don't necessarily think of when we think about sustainable or whatnot. So I think for me, it's still a really good idea. It's a way to bring community together. It's a way to amplify different businesses in Seaside and also showcase sustainability. But for me, I think it's still a good thing to explore and to maybe also, like you mentioned, Lacey, think about doing a little bit more outreach to different businesses and seeing what they would like to see. But I still think it's a good idea to kind of pursue.
Beth, I'll come back around to you.
Has everything been said? I think it has. A lot of good feedback on a very solid idea that is rooted in the realities of what has and hasn't worked in Seaside so far. We have very successful events, and then we have something that we attempted to start, meaning the farmers market, which wasn't a success. And not to say that we can't attempt that again. We will be under new leadership and new guidance, and it might be worth experimenting with that. I think Laura Murphy is going to be instrumental in advising us on some realities of maybe no matter who is in charge, certain things just aren't going to work in terms of having a produce farmers market on Broadway, for example. I am in support of this idea, and my opinion doesn't matter because I don't vote. But I would like to say that because there's a lot of good ideas that were floating around, and all the comments that were made hold a lot of weight and value. And the two things that are sticking out for me are leveraging and community. And without this work being done, in addition to all the other work that the EC has done over the past 3 years, staff isn't capable of doing that. We just don't have the bandwidth to take on all the work that you all have taken on. So I just want to say that I appreciate what's being done, the ideas that are being shared, and the collaboration within this group to want to do something good and right. So yeah, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
Aw, thanks, Beth. We couldn't do it without you. All right, let's open it up for public comment. Do we have any members ready to speak?
Diane Nielsen, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
You're muted, Diane. Still muted. I wonder, Dominique, if there's anybody else, maybe we can open it for anybody else that may wish to have public comment, and Diane can, she might be having some technical difficulties on her end.
Okay. Catherine Crockett, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Thank you, Dominic. And thank you, Chelsea and Timothy, for your creative ideas and research, everything that went into this presentation. I think it's really well done. I think that Sustainable Seaside, I don't want to speak for the group yet because we haven't had a discussion, but I think we would welcome the opportunity to present our sustainability projects and distribute information. And I love that aspect of the what's being planned. And I just have a couple of other comments. I would hope that whatever is planned, organized, that it would include CSUMB students outreach. For some reason, Seaside has never really become the college town that you would expect being adjacent to the university. A few years ago, Stephen Goings, Helen Rucker, and a group of Seaside citizens arranged a bus tour of new students as they started in their freshman year at CSUMB. They took them to organize, they brought them to the Peace Center where I volunteer. They had, I think, Sustainable Seaside presented to them, just different organizations. And I think that's a good idea to really promote it heavily to the students and let them know what there is, what Seaside has to offer. And also there's the international, culturally diverse character of Seaside that could be part of this. St. Francis Xavier Catholic Church every year has an international food fair. It's always the same weekend as West End, but it's hugely popular. And why couldn't, we have that as part of a fair, community fair, just to celebrate our diversity. One other thing, I'm glad that you're considering different locations. I have always felt that West Broadway location for the farmers market was hidden. If you're not from Seaside, you might not even think to look down that far, because most of those, I think most of this Saturday traffic, people coming to Seaside for services is on Fremont. And if such an event, community fair, is on Broadway, I would hope that it would be closer to Fremont, like near Other Brother pub, brewing company, and just closer to the city center, with signs for parking, where to park, and just make it easier for people passing by to discover it and park and find out what it's all about. So again, thank you for planning this. I think there are a lot of good ideas that are being presented here. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. Let's try Diane again.
All right, Diane Nielsen, you now have the floor to make your public comment.
Okay. Is there anybody else, Dominique, that would like to speak?
No other members of the public have indicated they wish to make public comment.
Okay. Diane, I'm sorry if you're having technical difficulties on your end. You're welcome to email myself or Beth if you have any comments that you'd like to have shared with the commission. All right, we'll move on. We have one more business item to go over. This was the item Oh, wait, I'm sorry, we're not moving on yet. My bad. Oh, I'm tired. It's 9 o'clock here. Is there a motion? Timothy and Chelsea at the beginning of their presentation indicated that, they're looking for some direction on moving forward. Chelsea, did you comment?
May I make a brief response in closing? Okay,
Sure.
thank you. I hear they say you're talking about how do we make sure that the different types, and I think Mariana too is saying different types of small businesses in Seaside specifically can participate and make it worth their while. And then also I heard that idea and a suggestion of providing a restaurant tour or a dining tour as a kind of a bridge or another form of bridge between the restaurants or arts and crafts or other small businesses in Seaside and a variety of residents and customers. So we actually think that with the community fair idea and bringing some of the smaller bakeries or arts and crafts stores in Seaside or restaurants out to the community fair is actually a way to provide that bridge where people can come to one place and then be able to taste things from different bakeries. There's like 100 bakeries in Seaside. They're all really good. And so that, I think in addition to the community fair being that central place to serve as that bridge, I was also thinking about combining that with some kind of guide, as people were talking about previously, and I think in this meeting as well, on where they can then, if they like the food, go ahead and find those places. So I think we definitely want to continue talking about making sure that the fair idea works with different types of small businesses. So I really appreciate all the feedback. I did speak with Councilmember Pacheco and Councilmember, or we emailed them and Councilmember Garcia Arazola, who, as I understand, have been doing community or small business like listening sessions around town. And so, as I understand, they also have actually independently come up with some idea that's very similar to the community fair idea to showcase our small businesses and to really give that visibility of those small businesses to the public. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a lot of conversations that we can have, a lot more direct outreach and surveys that we could do to the small businesses directly. But I think that conversation has begun.
So in your presentation, you indicated that you were looking for support from the commission to continue with the community fair idea, and realizing that the community fair at this point might mean a couple of different things. I'm wondering what you would see the next steps to be, so that maybe the commission can have a better idea of, if we're saying, yes, continue on, what does yes, continuing on look like to you?
Right. Thank you. Yeah, so we like the commission's approval to pilot Seaside Community Fair featuring, some probably a subset of the different small businesses that we're talking about, including fresh produce vendors and arts and crafts vendors and other small businesses in Seaside, in the fall. So if we can pilot the fair in the fall, tagging kind of alongside Blues in the Park, that's kind of what we envision as the next kind of, and the more immediate kind of concrete materialization of our different ideas. There's I didn't say next step because there's a lot of next steps in between. And so that, I hope that we hope that the commission can approve the community fair pilot in the fall, with the potential, if the pilot is successful, to have up to 3 more community fairs for the rest of the fiscal year. I mean, the fiscal year is ticking away, so that's, up to 3 is really generous. So I think, if successful, if the pilot is successful in the fall, we like what people are saying. I think it sounds like people like the idea of doing the next one sometime in the spring in conjunction with something like Earth Day.
And just to clarify, so are you saying for the community fair, it would be part of Blues in the Park, or it wouldn't be its own standalone event?
I don't know how realistic it is to set it up as its own standalone event at this point, but I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to talk about this with Timothy, and yeah, let me know if what we're asking the commission to approve as well, Timothy. It sounds right to you if you have any addendums.
No, that sounds right to me. I think at least for the pilot event in the fall, it would be not a standalone event. It would be with Blues in the Park. And that's something that we can revisit in the future after really evaluating how the pilot goes. But for the pilot, it would not be standalone.
Okay. So I guess at this point, if there's a motion, would anybody like to make a motion regarding this business item? Chelsea and Timothy, you're welcome to make the motion as well. Okay, we don't have to take a motion.
I wanted to give some other folks the opportunity to make a motion, but if nobody
that was
makes a motion, I can do it.
I think you are the most informed on this. So if you are looking for us to provide feedback and you have a direction you want to take, you can go ahead and make a motion.
Okay, I will make a motion for the Environmental Commission to approve running a pilot of community fair in Seaside as part of Blues in the Park in the fall, and if successful, running the community fair again or up to 3 times for the rest of the fiscal year, and also trying to leverage with other events or holidays.
I second.
Okay, I think we need to do a roll call vote. Dominique?
Yes. Commissioner Randazzo?
Aye.
Commissioner Del Valle? Is Commissioner Del Valle still on the line?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Tu?
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mole?
Aye.
Chair Reyes?
Aye.
Your motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Chelsea and Timothy, for that. I'm going to move us on to the last business item. We added this on the agenda tonight. Oh, sorry, 7C. I thought we were on the last business item. Can you guys tell I'm getting tired? All right, go ahead, Beth.
I'll pass this off to Laura Murphy to cover the USDA Urban Agriculture and Innovation Production Grants Program.
Okay, so Through the work that I've been participating in with community partners, FOSPA and Sustainable Seaside in particular, and through conversations that have come from fellow commissioners over the years, as well as other community members, coming to the commission, presenting and expressing interest in things such as community gardening and urban agroforestry. I saw this opportunity come across my radar from the United States Department of Agriculture. It's a competitive grant program, exactly as listed here, for urban agriculture and innovative production. And it includes items such as community gardening and urban agroforestry. So I have discussed this with those community partners together with Senior Planner Rocha, and I proposed to positive reception from those partners that we could submit a grant for this program. It is due at the end of July. I can share my screen with, oh, Beth is sharing, but yes, I'm going to stop. Just to show you basically the narrative template for this grant opportunity and some details about the opportunity itself. The proposal is that the Resource Conservation District of Monterey County, where I am employed, would submit and administer the application and the project, and that community partners would include, again, those listed: Sustainable Seaside, FOSPA, the city, the Environmental Commission, if you all agree, and then the community members and neighbors who have already expressed interest and made efforts toward community gardening in our city of Seaside. We would be aiming for a planning grant, not an implementation grant. The product ultimately would be a feasible plan for developing and expanding urban agroforestry or community gardening practices within seaside public spaces, such as the neighborhood parks. Also including habitat for native invertebrates, such as our pollinator habitat, which is already established, and consumable items for use within the community. We would anticipate the project to have a 2-year timeline, beginning likely in January of next year. And input that I would enjoy receiving from the Environmental Commission would be other product suggestions, outcomes of the planning process. Ultimately, a catchy acronymic title would be fantastic. And then references for consultants who might be willing and able to participate in this project through a sub-award. The consultants must be identified and included in the budget estimate for the application. So we have to be really quick about identifying individuals from within the community who could successfully engage our community and provide outreach, facilitate dialogue around what are the shared community values for public space and resources along this theme, and anything else that you all might contribute. So back to the narrative template, areas that I have highlighted are areas where I could use ongoing and further additional support. And I would also like to invite other commissioners to volunteer to contribute some text to this narrative. So presenting a statement of need and assessment of the problem, really basically concisely narrowing out what it is that we aim to do as we are proposing to do a planning project oriented towards urban agroforestry and community gardening at Seaside. A lot of this will ultimately come from the city in terms of what is the community of Seaside? How is it assessed as far as having a lack of access to fresh produce, for example, and also then describing how the project is going to initiate, build upon, and expand related work or programs, entirely focusing on what is ongoing work with both pollinator habitat, park work days, and then other community groups outside of FOSPA that have also initiated some community garden efforts. So with that, basically, I don't have anything more elaborate for a presentation, but I would like to ask commissioners for input.
Laura, what's the deadline again?
The deadline is the end of this month,
Okay.
by 30th.
And can you just I mean, I think I get what you're talking about, especially when you reference pollinators, but urban agroforestry, can you clarify that?
Yes, that would essentially be food production within the urban forested spaces. So using public spaces, public parks, for example, and that's where we would focus for this planning project, as a place to establish and implement food production. My interest, personally, an area of focus would be to use native plants and to select native plants that would both provide habitat as well as consumable food products. But I believe that it would be part of the planning project to ultimately identify if that is what would ultimately be desirable to the community as a whole, or whether the inclusion of more agronomic crops would be feasible.
Thank you. Kristen.
So I don't have a lot of bandwidth before the end of this month, but I do have some things that can help you. Because there's some interesting stuff going on with agroforestry right now in terms of, I'm trying to remember the terminology that they're using, but basically plants that can help the other plants that are growing around them. So instead of having to provide soil amendments and fertilizers, you instead are pairing up plants that are supportive of each other. And some of that might be worth looking at and having a side conversation on, because a lot of these are not natives, but the idea is finding the complementary species to like reduce the soil amendments that we have to do, or topsoil that we're losing. And also I do have something interesting about how having more plant cover over like dirt and concrete and stuff is helpful for urban environments. There's in terms of like temperatures and like runoff from extreme weather event moderation and all kinds of things. So I have things which sound like they go with the things that you've highlighted. I also want to just throw out a challenge that not a lot of our native plants are immediately edible. They usually require some levels of production that not everyone is going to be interested in. So we may need to think if we're prioritizing native plants and pollinator plants or food plants, which seems to be at least a topic here with the local food economy. But if we're combining some of the two, we might be able to have them work together. Because I mean, basically the closest thing I can think of that's native pollinator supporting and at all remotely edible is buckwheat, and that requires a lot of work to make it edible. But like something you could do in your kitchen at least. So this is a pretty big ask. And I feel like I could probably set up time for you for a specific time, but I'm pretty short on time before the end of the month.
Okay, Kristen. Thank you very much. I would appreciate the resources that you've mentioned. So if you want to communicate by email, that would be great. Thank you.
Laura, I'm thinking about presentations that we've had in the past that might be useful for this, specifically the work that some CSU UMD students did on fruit trees. They sort of mapped all these locations and types of fruit trees. And one of the problems, I think, it wasn't a lack of abundance. I think we had an abundance of fruit trees, but the issue was getting that produce to the people that needed it. And so if this is a planning grant, that might be a need that then could be served if we had the right plan and mechanisms in place. I'm also thinking about the presentation. I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, but he's doing a lot of work at Havana Solís Park.
Robert Daniels Jr.
Yes, thank you. and they're growing both pollinator plants and food.
Correct.
So I know you've tried to reach out to him in the past, but if just some sort of plan, that park in general is just that one, and then the one that's like just west of it, sort of across the street, adjacent, could use some love. And I think looking at urban agriculture might be a good, planning that space and coordinating it with this grant might be a good opportunity. So those are just two thoughts that come to my mind right now. If you wanted to talk more one-on-one, I'd be happy to chat over the phone or something.
Okay. Thanks, Lacey. Yes, those are two locations that are definitely included. One of those is Lincoln Cunningham Park, where Sustainable Seaside is the steward, and the community outreach ultimately is one of the major components of this planning grant, as well as ultimately identifying city resources that would be ongoing, available maintenance, right?
Mm-hmm.
How that's all part of the feasibility and conclusions of the planning project itself, but ultimately identifying consultants who would be available to do that type of outreach and work, because that would not be the area of strength for the Resource Conservation District staff. We would want to look to consultants or community members, community partners, but preferably, a proper civil word for that type of work to be done. So if anybody has resources or suggestions for who might be good candidates for that type of work, I would very much appreciate it.
I could ask some faculty. I mean, I feel like there's got to be somebody at CSUMB that does this type of stuff, like Robin Pelk or somebody. I can ask around.
That would be great. Thank you, Lacey.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments from commission members? Any comments from the public?
Members of the public, if you wish to make public comment, please use the raise your hand feature or dial *9 if you're calling in from a phone. Chair, no members of the public have indicated they wish to make comment on this item.
Great, thanks, Dominique. All right, now we'll move on to 7D. Figured we'd get there. We'd get there. We're there. All right, okay. Beth, you have my slides, I think, or do you want me to share my screen? Okay. So good news. As all of you know, we've been working on the Priority Impact Plastic Pollution Prevention Policy, also known as the PIP4, for the last 3 years. And the council has decided to hold a special meeting to hear this ordinance. They'll be hearing all 3 of the elements, 8.60, 8.62, and 8.28, which this commission has discussed in the past. And the meeting will be held on July 29th. So this month, which is great because for those of you that aren't aware, July is Plastic Awareness Month, and everybody should be not using plastic during July. So this will be the first read. And Beth and I will be preparing the presentation. If you want to go to the next slide, Beth. There are a couple of items that I wanted to bring to the attention of the commission. One is a minor change that I'd like to make to the ordinance. This is following a conversation I had with the Monterey Regional Waste Management District today, and it's something that we've changed in the past, and that's regarding what is acceptable in terms of compostable ware. Are you able to open it, Beth?
No, I'm not. I don't have permissions.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen because I think I have it up. Mm-mm-mm. Hmm. Hold on. Hold on. I'm frozen. Wait. The draft, Beth, is the same one that you sent me earlier today.
For 8.60.
Yeah.
All right, give me a second.
Okay, hold on. I think I got it. Okay. Can you guys see my Google Doc that's up? Okay, great. So the only change that that I'd like to make is that rather than listing specific compostable items, because these have changed once before in the last 3 years, and they're changing again now. So rather than listing them, I'd just like to stick with the that the compostable ware meets the standard designated as acceptable by the franchised waste hauler. And that would be Green Waste or the Marina or the Monterey Regional Waste Management District. They indicate what they take to whoever is our waste hauler. And then the waste hauler is the one that does a lot of the communication on it. So that's one change that, the only change that I'd like to make before this goes to council. So I'd like the commission to provide acceptance of that change or not. And then the only other item that I wanted to review was just to encourage people to attend the meeting on the 29th. I will be distributing an email that will go out to anybody and everybody that I have worked with over the last 3 years on this item. So Beth will be included in that, and then she'll forward it out to all of you. I just also wanted to make a note that the city council received a presentation earlier this spring from a consultant that's working with the Monterey Regional Waste Management District on implementing, sorry, that's a typo, on 1383. And that's the statewide regulations on composting. And so we're asking that he review this draft ordinance before the 29th, if possible, just to make sure that there's no sort of glaring problems. I don't anticipate that there will be, but I think it'd be nice to have that review before this goes to council. So with that, is there a motion to approve the change that I showed about the compostable ware definition?
Yeah, I motion to amend the definition for compostable ware to approve the recommendation made by Lacey.
And second.
I second the motion to make this more evergreen.
Okay. Dominique, do you want to do a roll call and then we can talk about other aspects that we may need to discuss before the July 29th meeting?
Sure.
Can we,
Commissioner,
sorry,
I need
Dominique.
public comment first. Sorry. Is there
Yeah.
any public comment on the item?
members of the public, if you wish to make public comment, please dial *9 or use the raise your hand feature for public comment on this item. Chair, there's no members of the public that have indicated they wish to make comment on this item.
Thanks, Dominique. Okay. Let's go back to the roll call vote then.
All right. Commissioner Randazzo,
Aye.
Commissioner Del Valle,
Aye.
Commissioner Tu,
Aye.
Commissioner Murphy,
Aye.
Vice Chair Mole,
Aye.
and Chair Reyes.
Aye.
Your motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we'll make that change. And then is there any questions or comments just regarding having this item put forth on the council agenda? All right. This is good news, folks. All right, let's move on to commission. Do you have commissioner reports next? I can't. Beth, would you mind? I can't get out of this. Okay, thank you. Reports from commissioners. I have one report, but I'll let others go first if they would like to go. All right. Yes, Laura.
I've essentially already made my report, but just a reminder, this coming Saturday, the FOSPA Park Workday, 10 to 12, will be at Beta Park. The following week, we'll be at Highland Otis Park. Just a little reminder to everybody, come out, join us. It's great fun. See you there.
Thank you, Laura. Mariana?
Hey, Laura, could you remind us how we can access where you're going to be on each Saturday?
Beth, I believe, has put a calendar up on the city website, which can always be accessed. And then you can also get onto the FOSPA Park Workday mailing list and get a reminder every week. I think it gets sent out on Tuesdays. If you would like to get on that mailing list, you could send me a message and I will forward it to the appropriate contact from FOSPA. But Beth, can you please point us to where the calendar is posted on the city website again?
Are you there, Beth?
To Beth, what did I miss?
Where the posting is for the park work days on the
Yeah, I'll
city.
have to share it. I don't recall how to get there right now.
Okay. I know there's somebody that sends me emails about it. So I don't know if you can get on that person's radar.
Yeah, that's Sarah from FOSPA. So she does the weekly event update email.
Maybe you could give her all of the commissioners' emails and they can, she can just add everybody to their email, maybe.
I should be able to do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura. Any other updates from commissioners? Okay, I have a couple quick I wanted to make note of. Next week is Latino Conservation Week, and there are lots of events happening from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So I wanted to share these with you. I know this is a dense slide, but I wanted to make sure it went out in the minutes as well so that folks could get connected to some of these great events that are happening. Many of them will be in Spanish with English option. And please share them within your networks or on social media. I think it's really great to have these events happening within our community. And then the next item was just an update that I wanted to provide. I had a conversation. Oh, sorry, Mariana, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just since you brought up Latino Conservation Week, thank you so much for doing that. Yes, there is some local ones happening, but there's also a lot of virtual awesomeness that's happening. Some of them include the organization that I'm with. So definitely go check out that website.
Yeah, it's linked on the slide, but if you just Google Latino Conservation Week, it comes up right away. So that might be easier. And the next item that I wanted to mention is I reached out to city staff this week and just asked a little bit about what actions were being taken to conserve water with the governor's announcement of, I think it's still voluntary at this point, water use reductions. They're not, I don't think they're formal yet, but I could be wrong. I haven't seen the news in a while. And he indicated that some of the things that they're doing, the main one, they've replaced spray irrigation with drip irrigation in some of the traffic islands, most notably that little triangle kind of by Fremont and Del Monte. But they have other areas that they're going to be trying to hit as well. They're continually monitoring the system for leaks. And this I know is something that Seaside is dealing with, but other jurisdictions are as well, and that is getting the allocation from the Marina Coast Water District on the recycled water. My understanding is in Seaside that would be used, I think, on the golf courses and maybe in other places. But that is something that I don't know what's going on at Marina Coast. I think they kind of need to take a little bit of action and proactive work to get that allocated and delivered to all of the regional jurisdictions. And he indicated that their team is thinking about other ways to conserve water and is open to suggestions. So I just raised this a little bit for your awareness tonight, but maybe at the August meeting, we can make this a more formal business item and spend a little bit more time talking and discussing water conservation efforts for Seaside. And those were my updates or reports, I guess. Any questions on either of those? Comment, okay. Staff reports.
That's just a trick slide. There are none.
Thanks, Beth. All right. I don't know why, but I can't exit out of like my full screen mode, so I can't see the agenda, but I usually end our meetings by indicating when our next meeting will be. So Laura usually backs me up when I'm late to the game on this, and it'll be August 10th. So we will meet again virtually on August 10th, but I do hope to see you all. Oh, great. Okay, there, now it worked. At the July 29th meeting. I think it would be really great to have the whole commission there in support of the PIP4. You can join virtually still. And so if I don't see you on 29th, which I certainly hope I do, I will see you on August 10th. And again, thank you so much to each and every one of you for the work that you do to support this commission and our community. Again, Timothy and Chelsea, thank you so much for the extra work that you put into the presentation and the green economic recovery work. Really appreciate that. And thanks to those from the community that joined us. And Amanda, welcome again. Look forward to working with you. Beth and Craig, thank you so much for the work that you do to support our city. Everybody have a great night.